Hi, I'm Dave, founder of Halloweeny Around, and I'm joined by my friend Annabelle here today to review the latest installment of the Conjuring universe, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. It's currently in theaters or streaming on HBO Max for 31 days. So, if you look at some of the posts I made on the site earlier this week, this case is one that I'm very, very familiar with. I read Gerald Brittle's book, The Devil in Connecticut. I remember they did an episode of A Haunting called Where Demons Dwell that was kind of about this case. So, there's a lot of material here, and the movie kind of right from the get go knows that it has a lot to cover. So, you essentially have three different storylines. You've got the possession and exorcism of the young boy David Glatzel. That was sort of the, inciting incident that starts the whole thing. You have the murder and subsequent trial of Arnie Johnson after having killed his landlord. And that's sort of what the trailers really play up, is that, this is the demon murder case, and he's pled not guilty for, demonic possession. And then you also have this kind of like mystery story where you're trying to figure out, who's behind all this. The trailers, at least, made it really look like, oh, this is like a courtroom drama thriller. It's going to be all about the trial. The movie's not really about him, in a weird way. The Conjuring movies have always sort of been about the family who's, in turmoil, and then the Warrens come in and sort of help them. That's sort of how the first one went, the second one went. This one kind of puts the Warrens front and center, and it sort of puts the entire focus on the movie on them. They're a bit older now than they were in the first one, and with, makeup and hairstyling, they kind of make them look a little bit older, because this is set like a decade after the first movie, and you can just tell that it's aged them, and I think that was a really interesting angle to take. We've certainly seen that, in the previous movies, the cases sort of take a toll on Lorraine, but this one's really drives that home that, Ed and Lorraine are in very real danger because of their association with all this and because of who they are. I wasn't really a fan of how they handled the verdict, where, you get more from the text read before the end credits than you do from the movie about how the trial went. And it seemed like the marketing was really playing up that angle, and that was the movie I really wanted to see. That doesn't mean I didn't like this movie. I was just a little bit disappointed that that's not the movie we got. The movie we did get, however, was a legitimately really cool and tense sort of mystery, where you have Ed and Lorraine trying to figure out, okay, so, this family has been cursed. They find a witch's totem, and this movie sort of takes that and runs with it. So I kind of have to judge it from, as just a casual horror fan. Well, nothing about my horror fandom is casual. As an extreme horror fan, I thought it was really effective. I thought that, it kept you engaged, it kept you interested. It takes you in a lot of different directions. It takes Ed and Lorraine, to a different state where, they think there might be a connection with a missing persons case there. So it plays out like this sort of paranormal detective story. And it's a cool story. But then again, as someone who's familiar with these cases, and as someone who was really excited to see the sort of trial aspect, it kind of neglects that. And I'm not sure if that was because, you're dealing with this was a real trial. Someone actually was murdered, and that's something that we shouldn't forget. But I think that they wanted to kind of focus more on the fictional, which I get it. It's, this is not the documentary. This is the the Hollywood movie. So I can certainly understand focusing on that. It just seemed to me that the marketing was a little bit deceptive in how, this is about the trial. This is, this is Law and Order meets The Exorcist. And then it's kind of more, I guess it is still Law and Order meets The Exorcist, but it's the detective side versus the courtroom side. Really, really tense movie. Really kind of just intense, extreme. Even from like the opening scene with David Glatzel's exorcism, way more brutal and kind of over the top. Not in a cheesy way, but like in a disturbing, unsettling way. When I first saw the original Conjuring movie, the opening text is like, this is the most terrifying case they've ever done, and it's been locked away for years. And in actuality, that was not that bad a case, compared to some of the others. Having met Lorraine Warren twice, more on that, I'll put that video in the description. She always said that was a story that, Ed always wanted to, thought would make a great movie, and he referred to it as the Bewitched Farmhouse. And then I remember reading this story, and I'm like, how did they not make this into a movie? You've got, essentially, you've like I said before, you've got 3 really interesting stories here. There was enough material in the story for several movies, and that's sort of what I was, thinking going into this. The David possession and exorcism kind of has to be very brief, because in the grand scheme of things, it wouldn't be that different a movie than the first Conjuring. And then you have the trial and the sort of, witch mystery angle of it, which either one of those could have made a whole movie, and, clearly we saw which one they went with. I did feel the absence of James Wan. As I said, this movie is very in your face, very intense. It was directed by Michael Chavez. He's the same director who did 2019's The Curse of La Llorona. That was the next to last movie in the Conjuring universe. But as a director, he's very much more like that. That's very much his style. James Wan, I feel like, was a bit more subtle, was a bit more kind of character and emotion driven. And you do kind of get that here. You get a sort of continuation of that, heartwarming love story that they did in Conjuring 2 for Ed and Lorraine. This one sort of, they show you a little bit about how they met, and it does add to it, but it just not in the same way that the Conjuring 2 did. And I think that's because you do have a new director, and his goal is to just kind of get in there and terrify you. And if that's what you're looking for, I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah, it doesn't quite live up to either of the other 2 Conjuring movies. That said, it's still a Conjuring movie, and I still prefer it to really any of the spin-offs. I don't dislike the spin-offs. I just wish we would get more of these movies that are directly about cases Ed and Lorraine did. If you want a good, creepy, supernatural, mystery, whodunit almost thriller, I do recommend The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I also recommend that they change the title, because frankly, I hate that title. I think it sounds really cheesy and sort of sensationalized, which I get is the point, but just call it Conjuring 3. Just call it Conjuring 3. So, those are my very tired, very sleep-deprived thoughts on The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Like I said, I woke up at 3 to watch it. I think I started recording this at like 5:30. It was dark when I started it, and the sun is up now. That's all I know. So I'm going to go get some sleep and check the website tomorrow, because I will be doing in written form, I'm going to be doing a full ranking of the Conjuring universe, including this new movie with it. And I will be back here on YouTube next week with some other horror-related video. You'll just have to wait and see. Like, share, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. We just hit our first 100 subscribers earlier this week, so I'm really, really excited for that. And I'm already working towards the next goal of hitting 1,000. So, if you could be part of that, that would be awesome, and I would appreciate it so much. You can also check out the website, HalloweenYearRound.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter. And, as always, stay scared. And remember, every day is Halloween.